In this lesson, we're going to create the final details that we need for our weapon. Alright, so now we need to create the hardware that we see on the weapon. We've got a few here and there. We've got a couple of screws. We've got a couple of these pieces that are end caps for screws. We have more on the other side. We also have this little pin that's here that keeps the weapon together. It's just an exterior type of detail. We also have this little screw up here on the barrel that actually will allow adjustment to the sight. Okay, so it pinches in on that. You can see a couple of the screws here on this side. So we're going to create that screw and then create a couple of those details. So let's go ahead and get the screw head first. So let's go ahead and go to our left view, and I'm going to select the lock or the key lock, the frame, and the hammer. We're going to right click and hide selection. Let's bring in a cylinder, and let's just make that about the size of the screw that we see here. So you can go to about, let's do 0.35 on that radius, and then we'll do 0.3 on our height, just for right now. Then let's go ahead and convert it over to editable poly. And then I'm going to actually take this polygon right on the front, and I'm going to scale it down to something like this, and then I'm going to push it toward the back, so that way we get kind of this really flat edge along the front here. Then let's go to vertex mode. Let's select these two vertices here. Let's connect those, and then we're going to right click and cut from here across to here. And you'll notice this weird shading right here. Usually that's an indication that there are two vertices on top of one another right here. So a quick way to check that is just to do a marquee selection around it and then check how many vertices you have selected, and that's under your selection rollout. So it says two vertices selected. Go ahead and hit weld, and once that has welded, you'll see that that is vertex 9. It's its ID. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this and let's pull that forward just to kind of round out the front of the screw. Now we need to create the position, the slat in which the screwdriver can fit into. So let's go ahead and take this polygon on the back side. Let's delete that out. Then we're going to go to edge mode, and I'm going to double click on this edge here, and I'm just simply going to chamfer that. Okay, now chamfering that is going to split that into two edges. In this case, we're going to do 0.02 with one segment, so that way it just splits it into two, and we'll hit OK. Now at this point, what I want to do is I actually want to get rid of this geometry because I need to push it back and I need to make it flat. And so we can do this by coming in. We could select these polygons, we could delete them out, or we could extrude it. Either way is perfectly fine. We just need to make sure that we take care of the backside here if we extrude that. So let's go ahead and extrude it. Let's do let's say negative 0.05 or something like that. So that's going to push that back into position there, something like this. And now let's go ahead and just hit OK on that. And with these polygons still selected, let's go ahead and use the make planar. And I believe that's going to be the Z position. Yep, there we go. And let's push that back in the X. Okay. And now let's go ahead and take these polygons that are on the side and let's delete those off. Now let's go ahead and take those polygons on the inside and push those back up against the back side of that screw there. Okay. Now we still have these vertices that need to be welded together. So let's go ahead and select these vertices right around this. You'll see two vertices selected. Let's weld that. Let's do the same thing here. And let's do the same thing here and here. Okay, so now with all of those set, let's make sure that we have that back side is flat. Okay, it's going to be close, but I just want to make sure. So let's go ahead and make planar in the Z direction. There we go, looks good. And now let's add our Turbo Smooth modifier. So with that added, you'll see that it gets close, but we've lost a lot of that detail. We don't have this sharp edge that we should see. So let's go ahead and use edge mode and show end result. Let's use our Swift Loop tool, and let's cut right across the front here, and that's going to harden up that bottom edge there. And then we also want to come in and create a cut right in here on the inside, so that way we harden up that edge on the inside too. Now, looking at this from the left view, you can see that we get this little divot out here on the edge. That's really not that big of a deal, but if we really wanted to deal with that, all we have to do is come in and select these vertices, and what we'll do is we'll make them planar in the X direction, okay, making that flat, and then we'll just kind of pull that in a little bit, and that starts to round out. Do the same thing here. Let's make that planar in the X, pull that in, okay, just trying to get that to look nice and smooth. Now, if it's still too much of a pinch, okay, you can start to kind of spread that out a little bit, but this is actually going to be inside of another piece. Okay, and so it's going to be covering up that edge, which is why we didn't really create much thickness to this. So to create that edge, let's go ahead and go to our left view, because I actually want to create this little cylindrical piece that it can fit into. This is actually going to go right inside of the key lock, but there are other pieces that need that screw as well. So let's go to cylinder, and I'm going to create another one, and it's going to be just outside the radius of that one. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and convert it to editable poly. Let's go to polygon mode, and I'm going to take this polygon back. And actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's take all of these polygons. Let's delete those off, including the one along the back. Here we go. And let's take this one. Let's scale that up a little bit more, and then we're going to inset it because I need to create an edge for it. Okay, so we're going to inset that. Let's go to our left view and hit F3 so we can see our wireframe. Hit F2 if it helps. And go ahead and take that value to 0.05 and hit OK. Then I'm going to go to border mode, hitting 3 on the keyboard, and I'm going to scale that out a little bit larger. So that way we get this nice big edge on that. Okay. Let's select that polygon right there in the center, and we'll extrude that back. But let's do negative 0.05. Actually, let's do negative 0.1. And sometimes, let me go ahead and cancel that really quickly. Sometimes whenever I try to extrude that, sometimes typing in a negative value tends to throw it off for some reason. There we go. All right. Okay, that should give us plenty of room, but if it's absolutely necessary, you can go ahead and give it more. Looks like the negative 0.1 was going to work, but let's go ahead and just try to size that up a little bit better. Okay, now with this, let's make sure that we apply Turbo Smooth to it as well. So bump that up to 3 iterations, show isoline display, and then we'll show end result and add some loops in here to just kind of harden up those edges. So let's create a loop right here on the outside edge there. Let's create one on the inside here. And then put one there. Perfect. Okay, so now with that, you can take this screw piece and you can pull that out a little bit, and it's going to fit right in there. And this is the first part of our floating geometry. So here's what we'll do. Let's go ahead and change the color and apply our material to it. Okay, and then we'll take these pieces and we will put them into position. So for example, looking at this screw and this piece here, let's pull that out and let's unhide all so that way we can see our frame. And this piece, I'm actually going to take just the screw. I'm going to hold down Shift, I'm going to duplicate that or clone it and put that in the position of the key lock. Let's go ahead and make it an instance so in case we need to make any changes to it later, it will update all of those. Then we'll hit OK. Then what I can do is I can take this piece right here and I can actually distribute it all around the gun where it's needed. Now in this case it's all on the right side, so there's these 3 points. Let's go ahead and pull that over here. Let's rotate that 90 or 180 degrees, excuse me. Let's go to our right view, hitting V and R. And if you need to, you can go ahead and hide the frame. So we'll just hide that selection really quickly. And let's take those 2 pieces. Make sure that you get both of them. Put this one in position. You can scale these freely, so you don't have to worry about it changing the other one. Okay, changing the scale of the object does not get affected by the instance. Hold Shift, drag this one out. Make sure it's set to instance, hit OK. Notice that whenever we scale this one, it does not scale the other. Okay, and then hold Shift, drag this one out, and we'll hit OK on that one, and then we're going to scale that down as well. Okay, now just for detail purposes, let's make sure that we rotate these at different angles so that way it doesn't look completely the same. Okay, so something kind of like that. All right, so now that we have all of those, let's right click and let's unhide all, and then we have our pieces in position. Now notice that they're floating, but whenever you look at them from straight on view, let's get them as close to the gun as possible. Whenever you look at them from a straight on view or an orthographic view, like the right side or the left side, you can't even notice that there's that little flat piece. It actually looks like it integrates right into it. So let's go to our left view, or our right view, hitting V and R. And it looks like it integrates right into it. And so that information is going to bake out, and it just looks like the screw is in there, okay, with maybe this little rim that looks like it's in a hole. If you need to, you can go ahead and scale that up just a little bit more, maybe center it a little bit better, and that'll kind of help give you that result. Okay, great. So now that we have those in place, we've got our screws in place. There are a couple of others. Let's not forget the one on the handle here. So we're going to hold Shift, drag that out. Then we'll just simply rotate that 180 degrees. And in our left view, let's go ahead and move that down. Put that into position here, scale that up a little bit. And then we'll put it right into the handle. Okay, it should look something like that. Perfect. Now we do have these other details that we have here. You can just take a look at those in the reference image. I'm going to let you create those on your own. It's the same process that we just used here. And then I'll have that finished, and then we'll be ready to start bringing those into something like ZBrush to create our final details. So we'll get into that next.